Welcome to Rick's Corner. I'm here with a friend of mine who's been a bodybuilder for many, many years. He's won Mr. America this last April. He's got a hell of a body, works out hard, trains hard, eats right, knows the key to success, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm really happy to welcome John Hart.
Thank you.
John, thank you for being here. It's like two bald heads are like two bookends. You know?
You look good, though.
With all this knowledge between us, these heads, it's going to work, right?
Yes.
I always like to start a little bit in the beginning because people get into bodybuilding for different reasons, right?
Yes.
What was your reason for starting and how old were you?
Wow.
You remember that far back?
I do. I do.
Okay.
My uncle took me to a seminar, a Boyer Co. seminar at Bath Beach Bodybuilding in Brooklyn. I'm from New York.
Okay.
And when he did, it was the same year he took third place to Frank Zane in the Mr. Olympia in 1979. And when Boyer Co., first he gave a seminar, and up on that stage he answered every one of our questions. And I saw him in his tracksuit, and he looked fantastic. But it was when he came out and he did a posing routine for us. Wow. I looked, and I walked out of there that day. I already knew in here something had been sparked.
Yeah.
You know, that was already kind of there. I admired bodybuilders, I saw the magazines, but when I met him, I shook his hand afterwards, and when he walked out on that stage and I saw him posing, my jaw fell open. And I knew right away.
You know, I remember too when he was in his prime, and I had met him through a photographer named Cliff Swan, who was a bodybuilding photographer at the time. He was very close with Boyer, and he was phenomenal.
Yes.
Just phenomenal. And you say, how does someone pack all that muscle in? Because back in the days, we ate right, we trained hard, and some guys made good gains and some didn't.
Yes.
You know, it's just the way it was. And he was one of those guys that had that massive bicep. Just everything worked.
He had that split up the arm.
Exactly.
And the thing, too, was, I was a young teenager. I was, at the age you asked about, I was 17 years old, 17 when I met him. And he was such a gentleman to me.
Yeah.
And he took his time to answer any questions that I had.
Oh, yeah.
And I never forgot that, even to this day, that I just had an event I signed pictures at last weekend, and there was a line around the corner, and every kid that came up, I made the same type of effort.
You have to.
I remembered from 30 years ago.
Absolutely. You pass it on because people, they come up to you, you know who you are, I know who I am, and they're like in awe of all this, and it's hard to understand their feelings because you're not there, but you've been there. So
Yes.
you've got to be really nice to them and show them the way and share your thoughts, because one little good turn, they really appreciate it.
Yeah.
They'll go on, they'll be nice to somebody else.
Yeah.
So you were how old?
So at that time I was 17, and I
Okay.
really didn't. I took my time to study a little bit. I had an issue that day given to me of Muscle Builder that had Frank and Christine Zane on the cover and the pictures from the Olympia that year. And I studied that issue from cover to cover, and that got me going. So all the champions of that day really were inspiring to me. But deep down inside, Rick, I had already come across pictures of bodybuilders, and there was already something inside me that I just needed that opportunity to see or to meet one live. That really sparked my interest even further to research it. I wasn't one to just jump on in. I had to learn a little bit about it first. So it was about a year and a half later that I actually joined a local gym, got in there, and had the benefit of really having a lot of powerlifters show me some basics and get me going right.
Did you start with powerlifting?
They knew I was into bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I was clear about that from the beginning.
Yeah.
So they just showed me how to squat correctly.
Yeah.
They showed me how to bench press correctly and how to do deadlifts correctly.
Okay.
On benches, for me, that one never worked. That's a whole other story.
No, but I have a reason for asking that, because my roots is powerlifting. I was a good squatter, a good bench presser, and a good deadlifter. And I thought that gave me the foundation, like a house. It gives you a foundation to go on and build muscle over that.
Yes.
So I always kept those three lifts pretty heavy, but then I added the shaping movements to the bicep, tricep, and all that, and kind of incorporate both of them. So by having those three movements, it really it gives you the foundation for your body that you need to grow.
The majority of my year is based on those three movements. I do dumbbell bench presses instead of the barbell.
I do too.
And I cut the barbell out. I knew I never got that right feel on it.
Yeah.
It was all on my shoulders. The elbows are too far out. My hands are fixed. The dumbbells right like this.
Well, let me tell you something. Not to veer off the subject totally, but back in the days down at Gold's when we bench pressed, the bench press rack was made different. You had the bars here on your shoulders, not out here.
Yes.
So when you would bench press against that rack, your shoulders would hit that bar, and it gave you stability that you could push a little more weight with.
Huh.
When the rack's out here, you push out the end of the bench.
Right.
You have nothing to push against. So that increased the bench quite a bit. And also the Olympic bars, back then were thinner. Today they're big and they're knurled, and they had a certain spring to them. You're not supposed to bounce it, but that flex and that bar gave you a little bit momentum so you come down and come up easily.
Right.
So bench presses were fun. If I do them today in the gym, that hurts my shoulder, like you say, and it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, that's been the key to the longevity in this now.
Yeah.
Because I've been going at this for 30 years.
Yeah.
And the key to it, I'm injury free right now.
Lucky you.
And
I'll trade you.
I can do personal records in the deadlift, the squat, and even with the dumbbells and the benches. However, I don't do exercises that don't fit me. I don't care. I don't care what anybody tells me. Arnold himself can stand right here and tell me, you must bench press. And I will say, not me, Mr. Governor. Somebody else.
Well, you're right, because I switched to dumbbells a long time ago.
Yes.
I think they're better.
Yeah.
There's more range of motion. They work the muscle better, and they do what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
And not only that, today they have machines like the hammer machine, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's individually moved, but with vision in my mind, I got dumbbells because you're coming back and you're working them, and it's kind of the same movement.
There's fantastic machines just like that.
Yeah.
Some pieces in each line I think have some merit to them. It comes down to which ones are going to fit John Hart.
Exactly.
You know, and if I have clients that I'm training, I've been training people now. This is my 25th year.
Yeah.
If I have clients, it's which exercise fit best for Rick's body.
Yeah.
If I'm training you, which ones? We have constant communication about that. So that's important to me.
It's very
too.
important.
You know,
because if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't work. It's not going to happen.
right.
You know, you got to feel the muscle when you work it, and if you know, I always say that the pump is important. Sometimes you don't get a pump, but it still works the muscle.
Well, especially with the basics. You know, when I do, the early foundational part of my year, I do end up sort of cycling different types of routines. In the beginning, at the beginning of the year, I am concentrating right now as I head into my pure off season, my power movements, my squatting, my benching, my deadlifting. And when I do those exercises, the focus, as you said, that you did before, is on just those exercises, getting as strong as I can, micro-loading with fractional plates. I use those as well, so I don't have to go up 5 pounds on everything all the time.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I get a nice base at the beginning of the year, and it sets it up right for when later on in the year that contest time comes up. We do a little gradual change, throw in some more exercises.
When you limit it to those exercises, are you eliminating curls and tricep movements and stuff like that?
No.
Okay, you're still doing it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll still touch them.
Right.
There's a certain time period where if I'm a little bit overtrained or I feel like I am, then I get to that gym, and if I'm going to do those benches, and I got a great workout on that, but man, the energy level all of a sudden took a dive.
Yeah.
No, I won't waste. I'm trying to be smart about that. I won't waste the time.
What are your symptoms that you feel when you're overtrained?
With me,
I mean, everybody's different.
yeah, I do understand. Joints.
Okay.
My joints. They'll let me know.
Do you feel lack of motivation at the time?
Yeah.
Tired?
Joints, motivation, tired. I would say those three are.
You've had enough for the day.
That's it. So
Okay.
I'm out the door. I don't mind walking out the door. If it's counterproductive.
Yeah, a lot of you guys out there, you write to me, you do overtrain. It's very easy to overtrain a muscle. And when you overtrain, you actually defeat your purpose of trying to make it build. It's just going to retract. You told me last time we met down at the Venice Beach that you had a routine that you were doing something that was really different than most workout routines.
Yes.
And what is that?
Well, I was heavily influenced, from that time period in the late 70s, early 80s by Mike Menzer and his training philosophy is heavy duty. And eventually, when I came to Gold's Gym in Venice, he actually trained me for a little while, and we became friends. And so the influence that he had on me and my training was such that I realized I'm not the type of individual. My body doesn't do very well with high volumes of routine of exercise, high volume, too much frequency, things like that. The routine that I mentioned to you, pre-contest, 3 times a week. Off season, twice a week I would train.
Each muscle.
No.
The whole body. Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, you said you went in 3 days a week, and that was it.
Yeah, and I had my whole body spread out over those 3 workouts, and then eventually my own unique way of doing it is I spread that out actually over 4 workouts. So I go into the next week even.
Yeah, I see how you cycle for that.
Yes,
I get that.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but then I might not get around to the full body until the following Monday.
It's funny because a lot of you guys train 6 or 7 days a week, and I do too because I have the time to go to the gym and do it. But what you're saying is the way it was back in the 50s. guys, Steve Reeves and guys like that, they train Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah.
And the reason being is, for the most part, back in those days, that any of the gyms that were bigger gyms were only men's days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Women's days were Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, so they couldn't go to the gym.
Wow.
So they did everything 3 times a week, and even back then, it was 3 sets of 10 reps per body part. They didn't do a whole lot, but they made good progress in the 3 days a week.
Right.
If you think back about it, and like you're doing now, every one of those off days is a growing day.
Yes.
You're recovering and you're growing, you're recovering and you're growing. And in most people's mind, with you guys there and me as well, and people I know, you think that if you don't train every day, you're going to lose it.
Not true.
No, but it does play in your head.
Yes. Yes. Working out is fun. I love bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I love training to build my muscles and to change my body.
Sure.
I'm again heavily influenced by pumping iron, everything Arnold said, everything Lou said.
Yeah.
And these are my heroes. You for that matter. I followed all of you guys. I've been more of a historian, and behind the scenes following you guys. So in reality, I was so influenced by someone, by Mike Menser at the time, that he hammered into me that I had to give equal time, not equal time, but equal respect to training as well as recovery. So if I'm not, and guys, you know this, or some of you know this, that training digs a hole of energy in your system. That hole has to fill in first before growth can even happen. So recovery precedes growth. This was one of the major things that Mike had hammered into my head. And every time I go to train, even now to this day, I love the way that I train, because I have to do it early in the morning. Very, very early. It's before sunrise. And before clients. And I have a limited amount of time. And I know to the minute when I have to be done.
Sure.
So for me, it's now become more of an issue of how much am I going to get done in that limited amount of time. And it gets very intense sometimes.
Sure.
Especially pre-contest. When that time comes in, I'll be moving.
All right, so let's talk about something else. How's your diet during this time?
During which time? Right now?
Well, no, when you're training. We'll talk about the post too, but when you're training, what do you eat?
I am a rather high carbohydrate individual. I believe that I need to eat those carbs. So I end up averaging 60 to 65% on a caloric basis. Carbohydrates, 20 to 25% protein, and 15% fats. And when I keep it at that percentage, all I'm doing is adjusting the calories up or down. And hopefully you'll be able to tell by some of the pictures I've given you that I got in pretty good shape.
Oh yeah, you got in great shape.
So
that's kind of like going against all the rules though, because normally it's like keep the protein high and the carbs low.
Well, now, the rules of bodybuilding, but not of biology and physiology and kinesiology.
No, I know that. I know that.
Right.
But the rules of bodybuilding, because that's what we all did back then, to stay ripped and stay muscular.
Yes.
And then you increase a lot of carbs, you feel like, oh boy, I'm getting fat now, but obviously you're not.
No. Rick, throughout the year, a long time ago I had to kind of break away from the protein.
Yeah.
I'll call it a myth for now. And I just felt horrible. I did try it. I did give it a good shot.
Sure.
And I could look really good on it. Now, little did I know, I was also controlling my calories when I was doing that by dropping the carbs, eating protein, some fats, and some vegetables, and salads.
Sure.
I did control my calories. But what would happen is when we would go into that kind of a mode, especially pre-contest, man, like most people, that first 5 to 10 pounds that would come off, it wasn't a good 5 to 10 pounds. It was almost like coming straight from my muscles. They were deflating. That glycogen was being used for energy before my liver would kick in and start converting some of that protein to energy. So it was a horrible feeling, and I'd watch part of the hard work that I did throughout the year just go straight down the toilet. So when that was the case, again, this does get back to the influences of Mike Menser, really. He was a friend too, and he taught me, yes, you can have carbohydrates, and yes, you can have things like, hey, occasionally have a little ice cream, occasionally have one of my major staples, another big influence, Clarence Bass on me.
Sure.
One of my biggest staples in my diet, pre-contest or off-season, I love bread.
I do too.
I have peanut butter and agave syrup on double fiber bread, and I'll have 2 or 3 of those sandwiches every single day.
I get that. I love that.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, when I eat that, I have energy, I feel great, and then I control my calories. I track those calories. So I have certain patterns that I'll run.
Mm-hmm.
Off season, I know where I'm at. But when it comes time to start shifting into pre-contest mode, I have a certain pattern that I start off with. I'll adjust it as I need, but then I know those adjustments. And again, it comes from the experience of working on my body, but also hundreds of clients over the last 25 years.
That's amazing.
So that's the fun part too, is that when I introduce clients especially, you guys out there have to try this. When you control your calories as opposed to diet equaling low carbs. Let's cut that out right now. You know, if you think in terms of diet equaling controlling your calories instead of your carbs, you should be able to eat a balanced, somewhat of a balanced menu plan, and then maybe fine tune it for your body, because some people, you know, they do handle certain foods better than others.
Sure, everybody's different.
And for me, you know, when I experimented actually with some clients, one man in particular was 56 years old, and I trained him for a natural bodybuilding contest, and I watched as he ate bread, fruit, and milk. The big three that are
sure,
absolutely out, okay,
Sure.
in bodybuilding, modern bodybuilding.
Sure.
Bread, fruit, and milk. And he was the most ripped man on the stage and maintained his muscle. He looked fantastic. And he took second in the novice and second in the masters at the Ironman Naturally 2 or 3 years ago. That's an NPC show.
That's amazing.
So I saw it happen with him, and this really emboldened me to even do it further with myself. You know, and not be afraid, have no fear when it comes to certain foods.
That's a big jump.
Yes. So yeah, the diet, mainly carbohydrates. I've experimented recently with, you know, as the years are going by now, with increasing certain types of easy to digest proteins, maybe less red meat, more fish, more of the easily digestible proteins, because I know that it's an absorption issue as we get a little bit older. So older men, older women, you know, their capacity to digest protein and absorb certain foods, it decreases a little bit with that.
Do you take digestive enzymes?
Yes, I do. I believe in them.
You know, we had this talk a few months ago, and ever since I've been taking them every meal.
You feel that?
Yeah.
You see?
I think they really help.
They really do. They really do. They help me to digest the food
Yeah, it
better.
breaks it down. You don't feel bloated. It definitely makes a difference.
No bloat, no gas, and the muscles get fed properly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not what goes in our mouth. It's what gets absorbed.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm after. So
All right, so you won Mr. America, was it last April?
it was in April 20th, 2013.
And now you have other goals in mind coming up. What's your next thing?
I actually, 2 weeks ago, I competed in the WNBF Pro Natural World Championships. They invited me straight to that from the Mr. America as a professional now in the natural organization, the WNBF. So I'm actually a WNBF Pro. The Mr. America was, you know, one of their amateur shows, and it qualified me to be a professional in the organization. So much like the, you know, NPC going to the IFBB.
Right.
So 2 weeks ago I did the World Pro Natural Championships, and I was a heavyweight, and I took home 6th place in that. So 6th in the world. These guys were fantastic.
Oh, no, that's good.
And it was a just placing. I'll put that right out. These guys were absolutely fantastic. If you guys ever have the chance to check out the WNBF.net, you'll see a lot of pictures, and you'll see a lot of pros on there that you'll see what's possible naturally. Okay? We're Olympic drug tested.
Yeah, I know that.
So that's the other thing.
I know that. Well, I want to thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Rick.
This has been fun. It's enlightened me, and hopefully you too, with your theory on this, because it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I hope somebody out there, if you ever have any questions, you can get to me through Rick.
That's the other thing. Where are you on the internet if we want to find you?
I have a website. It's www.intenseheart.com. Spell heart like the real heart.
H-E-A-R-T.
H-E-A-R-T.
I'll put that up so they can see it.
Please. And other than that, I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
And you can just write through Rick to get to me.
That's
We're
exactly
there.
it. And also I want to thank World Gym.
Yes.
World Gym has sponsored John, he's sponsored me. They've been wonderful people.
Yes.
They're always opening new gyms and working real hard to promote the brand. And they're wonderful people, and they're behind us, and we love them as well. It's just a good organization.
I have to say, going back to the Joe Gold days, that World Gym has always been supportive of me and everything I've ever done in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And now, with the organization and World Gym licensing, the family behind it, everybody involved, they're fantastic. So I really want to thank all of you guys.
And for those of you people who don't know, I was just talking to my girlfriend about last night. Not many people know who Joe Gold is. Not today. I mean, Joe Gold was the pioneer of bodybuilding. He owned Gold's Gym. He put Gold's Gym on the map, and then 2 years later after he sold it, he opened up World Gym. So Joe owned World and Gold's Gym. He was the motivator behind all the equipment. He built all the equipment, he promoted the gyms, and he made them, both gyms, what they are. And that's the man to thank. And what really gets me is that a lot of people today, like I said, they don't know who Joe Gold is.
Right.
How can you not know? I mean, they confuse Joe Gold and Joe Weider. They're two different people.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you so
And
much.
thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more Rick's Corners. We'll be back with many more good guests and tips on nutrition and training.
Yes.
It's rickdrason.com. He is the equalizer, baby. See you next time.